Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Georgia Recruiting Rumors versus Facts. I am Blaine Gilmer here with Jed May and Trent Smallwood. And guys, it is game week. But having said that, recruiting never stops nonetheless. And we're going to talk all recruiting. But, just covering everything. Jed, Trent, how excited are you to be, in the midst of a game week here?
Well, judging on my level of excitement for watching Nebraska and Illinois the other day, my level to watch actual football this week is going to be off the charts. So glad summer's over and game week's finally here.
Trent?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of time you wait for. You get done in January, and it's just kind of a lull until you hit those summer months. You start seeing practice reports, and you start seeing the recruiting rev up, and then we're finally here.
Yeah, and it's honestly for the three of us, when we solely cover recruiting, this month of August is, kind of a lull period. Guys, high school guys are focusing more on their, getting ready with their teams, things of that nature. The college coaches themselves are getting ramped up for, the game coming up for themselves. They're in the midst of fall camp. So the recruiting, it never stops, like I said, but it did take a little bit of a dip there for a little while. But we are here on the UGA Sports YouTube channel to be talking not only about answering your questions later on the show, but as we said, to open up this game week, some big news, big literally and figuratively, Jed, as the mountain of a man that is 6'8", 330-pound Jacob Hood commits to Georgia today.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember the first time, at least for myself, seeing Jacob Hood in person was at the 5-Star Challenge back in late June, and we got there. All the recruits have numbers and everything. I'm like, okay, I'm looking for number 74, whoever Jacob Hood was. And then you find the guy that's 3 or 4 inches taller than everybody else. I'm like, oh well, I'm an idiot for wasting all this time looking at the roster because he sticks out pretty good, but. Yeah, he's a mountain of a man. It kind of is a throwback to the early Sam Pittman years recruiting when they just brought in those giant guys year after year. And
the Great Wall of Georgia.
The Great Wall, exactly. So he seems like he'll be another good addition for Matt Luke in the offensive line there.
Trent, you did the breakdown of what Georgia's getting over on UGAsports.com. And by the way, guys, if you haven't used the promo code, if you're not a member of UGA Sports, and like we answer questions from Dog Vent and Vault members first, and then Trent, whenever somebody commits, Trent does like a video breakdown of what Georgia's getting out of that commitment. And Trent, you did the one for Jacob Hood as he committed today. So kind of give everybody a synopsis of what they're getting out of Jacob Hood.
I mean, first of all, y'all said a grown man. I mean, he is. You watch his film, and it literally looks like he's going up against like a elementary school little brother or something. He's literally pancaking guys left and right. He's doing what he's supposed to. At that level and at that size. But the one thing that stood out to me is just his, his killer instinct. I mean, he's always finishing blocks. He's always, at that size. A lot of people say that offensive lineman dirty. That's the kind of offensive lineman you want. You want them dirty type offensive linemen. They're going to finish blocks. And at 6'8", 330 or 340 or wherever he stands, I mean, he's athletic. He'll get out and pull. He's just he's not somebody I would like as a safety pulling at me on a toss sweep or an end around or something. But he's just an athletic guy. He fits Georgia's system really well, and I really think that he was one of Georgia's top offensive tackle targets, and I think although his ranking is in the 200s, I think he's a very good get for Georgia.
Yeah, and also one thing you have to realize, people, when you evaluate offensive linemen, the way I was taught at least coming up is one, may sound weird, but you're looking at who's got the big rear end, the lower half that is as strong, is able to handle. And guys, if you're looking at Jacob Hood, Jed, his legs, I think you and I could stand back to back to each other, and his legs would be bigger around than both of us. So Trent could hop in there too, man. I mean, the guy has legs that are that big around. It's crazy. And also he's able to bend. When you see a guy that size that can get down in his stance and his feet are flat on the ground, you know what I'm saying? It's not his heel coming up off the ground and things like that. It shows that he has flexion in his ankles. in his knees and his hips, and he's able to get down and then get in and out of that stance, as you said. And Trent, you talked about a guy that, you know, he makes people look small. One of the videos that we put in the commitment article today was from the 5-star challenge that Rivals put out. He was going against Michael Williams, and Michael Williams looked tiny, and Michael Williams is not a small guy. Jed, I mean, you've went and seen Michael here recently. How big? Tell people, Michael's what, how tall is Michael? Maybe 6'4", 6'5"?
I want to say 6'5", I think, and probably trying to think, he's listed at 255, 260, I want to say.
Yeah, I mean, he's not a small man, and Jacob Hood makes him look tremendously small. So when you've got a prospect like that, Georgia obviously has to love that. Kirby Smart has talked in the past a lot about having guys, you know, Trent, you said he could get out and pull, so that means he could play guard, he could play tackle. And right now, he reminds me a lot of a Devin Willock that they brought on. You know, Devin Willock, 6'7", 325, is able to move, but he's also able to lean on folks. I mean, Trent, you see that kind of be the similar type player developmentally wise, Hood and Willock?
Yeah, I do. And I mentioned today, even in the film review, he's not as polished as Evan Neal was, but they have similar size and similar games and similar athleticism. And that's kind of who I compared to. I don't think his game is as polished, like I said, as Evan Neal's was at this stage in their career, but size-wise and athleticism, they're very similar.
Oh, yeah. And you know, like we said, Hood now becomes the second commitment for Georgia on this offensive line. Trent, you know, we'll probably have this in our questions a little bit later, but offensive line wise in this class, now that Hood joins Griffin Scroggs, what do you expect maybe going further? Is there anybody other than a Ernest Green that you think could maybe fit in this class, or is it kind of Ernest Green or bust going forward for Georgia here?
I mean, I think with spots the way they are, I think you try to get Ernest Green, and then it'd be after that it would come best available among a couple of different positions of need towards the end. But I think Ernest Green is definitely your number one priority, and then if you don't win those sweepstakes, then you just move on to the best available at a few other positions.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that there's definitely guys that Georgia has prioritized higher when it comes to the edge defender position, when it comes to the defensive back positions that they have a real chance at, that I don't know that they're going to go with reach for a guy. A guy with family ties, of course, to the program. His dad having been there. Drew Bobo is not out of the question. He's kind of, battling back and forth, I think, between Auburn and Georgia. And in fact, Gunnar Stockton, when Roddy went and saw Gunnar play this week on national television, but Roddy went up there and shot that game with Gunnar playing against Pace Academy. Drew Bobo was a name that Gunnar mentioned as a guy. Now, of course, their families are very close and things like that as well. But Jed, in terms of moving forward here, before we get to the list of Clemson visitors for the week, because I do want to hit on that. You got a chance to go down and see Jaheem Singletary. Just kind of give guys, and we're going to have a YouTube video, guys. I was a little bit slammed, so we don't have the B-roll here for you, but we're going to have a YouTube video on this channel. So make sure you subscribe to this channel. You hit notifications, things like that, of Jaheem Singletary's recent game that Jed covered. But just let everybody know, what was that like going down and seeing Jaheem Singletary in action? And if that's a guy that Georgia ends up bringing in this class, what did you see out of his game?
One, it's really hard to film a stand-up in the rain. I tried to do that after the game. The skies opened up. It had to wait it out under a concession stand next to some deep fryers. It was not fun. But as far as Jaheem goes,
Jed, you all right?
I wonder at that. I mean, the team they were playing.
You froze up there for a minute, Jed. You good?
Hey, I'm back. Am I back?
Okay, there you're back. So you were saying you were by a deep fryer, and then you fell out on us.
There we are. This is why live shows are fun.
That's it.
So talking about Jaheem, he did kind of what you'd expect from a corner at that level. The team they were playing, they threw at him. I want to say they threw at him once the whole game. He did make a nice play to break up the pass, but didn't really have a lot of action his way. They moved him to safety in the second half, and he had 2 or 3 tackles. But he looks very fluid on the field. He moves very well. He's got the size, the size-speed combination that you look for, and that's something he told me after the game was the Georgia coaches had told him, his combination of size and speed. He told me he's 6'2" and a half, and he ran a laser 4.5 40 at a South Carolina camp once. So that was what Will Muschamp was there, so that might have ticked down a couple tenths of a second by now. So he's one of those guys that's the complete package at corner. I think that's really all you can say about him. That's something you'd expect from a guy that, again, is the number 1 corner ranked in this class right now, and I think he's going to end up staying there for the rest of until he commits.
Yeah, and Trent, we on the site, just so people know, we're going to get to the questions here in a minute, but it was a packed weekend because not only did we have Jed's interview with Jaheem Singletary, but we also had, through our Rivals, contributors here in the Rivals Network, we had Luther Burden on the site. So, what was gleaned kind of from Luther Burden's first game and anything you maybe caught from the interviews and things like that with him here recently, Trent?
I mean, it's the relationships that the staff's been able to build with those guys. I think that really stands out. He talked about Hankton. He talked about his relationship there. That's what Georgia's done a good job of in the past, is just the relationship part, and that's the reason why they've been in it. With all these prospects at the end of the day, and the NIL process is throwing some kinks in the Georgia's recruiting equation, I guess, but I think they'll get everything ironed out. But the relationships, I think, with Singletary and Burden are big here, and they've just done a great job there. And of course, Burden is electric on the field. He's a highlight factory waiting to happen, and that's the way he was in the first game.
Yeah, it's just electric, and in the special teams game at receivers is unbelievable. But in terms of another guy that I highlighted, just one more thing on the website today. And like I said, if you're not a member, make sure you use Dogs 2021 either by the end of day tomorrow, and you get your first year for $20.21. But I talked about Caleb Downs today. And Caleb Downs is a young man that in the first 2 games has helped to lead Mill Creek, who's been a good program, obviously, but they're still relatively compared to the Blue Bloods that are in the Gwinnett County, they're a newer school still. But they have just absolutely demolished 2 established programs that are perennially year in and year out in Parkview and Norcross early on. They beat Parkview 43-10 in Corky Kell inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And then they were down 13-0 at halftime this past week and ended up beating Norcross 43-13. And that combined 86-20 score for Mill Creek over those 2 programs has a lot to do with Caleb Downs. Trent, I know that you saw his brother Josh Downs do a lot of stuff while he was in high school. You were, involved around when he was getting recruited. He's at North Carolina now. But when you have a guy that's able to play Wildcat quarterback, line up as slot receiver, play punt returner, kick returner, and be a hard-hitting tackler at safety, break up, multiple pass breakups already this year, that's just a complete package. And it seems like to me a guy that Jamil Adai and Will Muschamp are probably going to invest a lot of time in.
Yeah, for sure. He just reminds me of that Richard LeCount type athlete, and he probably got a little bit more speed than Richard, but just an all around good athlete. You want them, especially at the back end, the safeties, to have that athleticism and that ball skills. And Downs definitely has that, and he looks like he's going to be a ball hawk safety at the next level, and I think Georgia will definitely try to get in that battle.
Yeah, now with his brother being at North Carolina, and there's connections to Dre Bly, some people were pointing out on our on the vault and stuff like that. Of course, it'll be difficult, but Jed, one guy that you've talked to a good bit and went and saw is AJ Harris. Caleb Downs and AJ Harris are very close. Michael Daughtery is also involved in that group. I know when I talked to Caleb at the Rivals 5-Star Challenge, they said those three, and then also Braden Joyner, who's an offensive lineman in the class of 2023, are all kind of talking about, comparing notes on schools, maybe talking about going and playing together at the next level. Always have to take that with a grain of salt, because at the end of the day, everybody's going to make the best decision for themselves. But, how much of that have you heard in your conversations with guys like AJ Harris and even Braden Joyner when we've talked to him?
Well, I think you can throw Ethan Nation into that mix.
Absolutely.
As well. Him and AJ Harris and Caleb Downs, if we're going to focus on the defensive backfield, they share a defensive back trainer. They hang out there all the time. I've talked with, I can't remember if it was Caleb or AJ that told me this, but they have competitions during drills of who makes the most interceptions, who drops the fewest passes, all that kind of stuff. So those guys obviously share a very tight bond. And like you said, at the end of the day, it comes down to what school is best for each individual kid. But, even if Georgia were to pull, say, AJ Harris and Caleb Downs, or Ethan Nation and AJ Harris, if you even get two of those three, that's a really strong foundation for a defensive back class in 2023, just looking at, that little group right there. So, it's one of those things, like you said, you take it with a grain of salt for now. Those guys obviously aren't committing necessarily soon, definitely aren't signing anytime soon. So, but it's definitely something to monitor, as we look forward into that 2023 cycle.
Yeah, 2023 is now upon us here, Trent. In 2 days, September 1st is going to be here, and people don't realize how big of a deal that is, September 1st, when the NCAA allows these programs and coaches and staff members to directly contact these players. I know that I spoke to Luke Montgomery and his family, an offensive lineman out of Ohio in the class of 2023 recently, and he made it clear to me that they made it clear that they're really looking forward to seeing who reaches out on September 1st. Just kind of explain to everybody why that's such a big deal, and how recruits look at that.
I mean, that as a freshman and sophomore, you start seeing offers come in, and really, at the grand scheme of things, those offers don't mean anything until you get to September 1st through August of next year, when official offers will go out for these kids. But you'll really see who, you might see an offer on this kid's page, but you'll really see who is a want for these coaches when it comes September 1st. And when they're able to start reaching out to the kids directly, it's been all through a high school coach or, something up to now. And, I think it's important for staffs, because it's all about, what staff reaches out to me, what staff shows me the most love, and that's kind of how a recruit or a prospect sees things moving forward. And I think September 1st will be a big day for a lot of these kids.
Yeah, and there's guys that are not necessarily even maybe thinking about a particular school right away, but if somebody's the one that is blowing up their phone at midnight, and as weird as it sounds, that grown men are blowing up the phone of these adolescents here at midnight. It happens, guys. That's the nature of it. That's how it has to go. There's edits being prepared right now in graphics departments across the country, getting ready to just flood the DMs and inboxes of all these guys. I mean, it's just crazy. But as we say on here, recruiting never stops. Trent, you got something? The
funny thing is, you have to know what recruit you're dealing with, because some recruits like that 1201 phone call and some recruits hate it.
Yeah,
it can really turn a family off for those phone calls. So you really have to know, as a coaching staff, you got to do your research leading up to this point, because some of those kids like it, some of them don't.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt that there's some that take things better than others in terms of the spotlight of recruitment. I don't think a Gunner Stockton is a one who would have appreciated a 1201 phone call from anyone, even though he had helicopters landing up there in Tiger, Georgia, to come see him as a freshman. Speaking of Gunner, he bounced back big time off the week one, kind of a admittedly disappointing performance for him. And even though they were facing a tough Jefferson team, disappointing performance for him. J-Bo Shaw said as much in an interview that he had with Roddy Nabulsi after their win over Pace Academy, but 7 touchdowns on national stage. So 2022 Georgia quarterback commit Gunner Stockton does have a tremendous performance, and he's got a big test coming up this Friday with I think it's Eagles Lane and Christian is going to come by. Elka over there. So they're coming up. So the battle of private schools, and it's going to be one to behold this Friday night. But with that, guys, you ready to hit some questions real quick?
Let's do it.
Yes, sir.
All right. So it comes from our resident, and I'm going to play these where they scroll across the bottom. So that way you can see them while we're talking about them. But Scuffletown Dog down there says, which guys that we are recruiting will be there to watch us? And I think he's referring to the Georgia Clemson visitors. And that's the next thing I said we were going to get into there. I think most famously on ESPN2 after the game, Cole Kubelik and the other announcer was talking to Gunnar Stockton, and Gunnar Stockton was kind of holding the headset there. You can tell very uncomfortably. And he said, oh, yeah, I think Georgia's going to have a good chance to win, and I'm going up there with Oscar. So he told the whole country that he's going up there with Oscar Delp. I text Oscar and was like, did you know Gunnar was going to kind of put you on blast like that in front of the entire country? And he said, absolutely not. So, but he said, we are going up there together. So Oscar Delp, Gunnar Stockton, definitely going after him. Trent, any other guys that you know for a fact so far that are going to be heading up there to the Georgia Clemson game in Charlotte? You heard of any more? I think we heard of some when we went and saw Cedar Grove and Buford, right?
Yeah, you got Walter Nolan, you got Christian Miller, you CJ Madden. That's three big uncommitted guys that'll be there.
Jalen Walker will be there. The committed Walker. Yeah.
Sean, you'd heard was going to be there.
Yeah, Sean Washington's going to be there. There's some stuff going on with Sean in terms of what happened with his high school and things like that. But just want everybody to know from what I've been able to gather and collect, Sean Washington is absolutely someone that Georgia is recruiting, someone that they like very much at that defensive tackle position. And I think he's more of a true nose type, wouldn't you say, Trent? More of a guy that can end up being that two gapper more so than a Tyree West or a Christian Miller. He would fit more in the same role as a Travis Shaw or a Walter Nolan in terms of his body type and play.
Yeah, I think if you can't land Walter Nolan, then Sean would be that next guy in the middle of that defense line, because Christian Miller is more of your three tech guy, and of course Michael still pursuing him, and he's going to slide out to the edge, the jack or even the five tech. So I think Sean is a top target to watch, and I think he'll be there. And there's just a list of guys, the commits, uncommits. I think some kids down in Florida are going to show up at this game that are targets of Georgia, and it's just going to be interesting to see who shows up.
Jed, any more before we move on from that question? Any more that we hadn't named that you think are going to be up there?
Yeah, I believe Rivals national analyst Adam Gorney posted on our board that Ernest Green's going to be there, right?
He did. Ernest Green's making a cross country trip, so that's big news.
And Ethan Nation's going to be there. When I spoke with Ethan, he said that he thought that AJ Harris might come over with him. I actually talked with AJ's dad on Friday night, and he said AJ suffered a sprained ankle in their game Friday, so nothing too serious medically, but I don't know if that's going to keep them from making the trip or not. But that's another potential guy that could show up. So, like y'all said, it's going to be a who's who of targets, for the 2022 and 2023 classes at that game.
You got to think some Clemson guys are going to come that are Georgia targets as well. They're just, they get the tickets on that side of the thing. So
yeah, like Andre Green Jr. Yeah.
Yep. So it's going to be a loaded. There's going to be a lot of top prospects on both 22, 23 classes, and it's just going to be interesting to see who shows up and see who they're cheering for on the sidelines.
Yeah, and I'll be at the game. Obviously they're cutting down on like a bunch of sideline passes and things like that. So I'll just be there like in the stands and stuff like that. But rest assured, the UGA sports analyst hat will be on during the game. If I see any guys there, the people on the vault will be the first ones to know. So I'll try to hit some. In fact, I'm going to try to get with some guys while I'm up there in Charlotte. So it'll be good, and we'll definitely report on that as we come across those guys.
Jacob Hood's going to be there too, by the way. Forgot to mention him. But Jacob.
Oh yeah, Jacob Hood, the newest commit.
Right.
Yeah,
he's going to be there as well.
2 tickets for him.
Yeah, he need what a normal seat. I think they say is 18 inches. He's definitely going to need more than that. So he's gonna have to have a couple. Hopefully, they don't have arms on the chairs. He'll be in trouble. But here we go. Pine Tree 1. Are spots getting tight for the 2022 class? Well, there are 16 commitments now. Trent, I'll let you kind of assess that real quick with everybody. What do you think that Georgia ends up taking in this class, and how do you see these spots kind of being, held out or played out here?
I mean, I don't know if they're tight because I think you're looking at several different positions as far as what they're focused on. I think they're focused on a couple of defensive backs. I think they're focused on a couple of edge guys. I think they're focused on a couple of defensive linemen. And you're sitting there with probably, 7 to 9 spots somewhere. So there's 6 of the spots right there. You're probably going to take one more wide receiver. That's 7. And then your tight end, that's 8. So, I mean, I don't know if the spots are tight. It's more so as they're pretty obvious of what, the spots are. And now who they gonna land out of those top targets.
Yeah, and I put out on the website not too long ago top 10 guys that Georgia's still wanting in this class. Jacob Hood was one of them, and that was a couple of weeks ago. We know Oscar Delp is one. We know Kamari Wilson's one. We know that Jaheem Singletary's one, and even Julian Humphrey. You could throw him in there. They're very much so in the thick of things with trying to flip him from Florida. Texas A&M is in there as well. So that is a situation, Trent, where we said if all 3 of those guys want to come to Georgia, meaning Wilson, Singletary, and Humphrey, room will be made.
Yeah, and that's what we were talking about earlier with offensive linemen. It might get down to a situation where if they don't or they're not able to land Ernest Green at the end of the day, then it'll go to best available. And, if you got those 3 defensive backs sitting there that want to come, then there goes one of the offensive line spots. So,
yeah, and Trent, in terms of, I know we've touched on, not Trent, Jed. I know we've talked about Michael Williams, and you went and saw him. Any other updates that we've heard recently on edge guys? I think Anai White is getting some momentum now towards Ohio State. Last time, kind of checked on Anai White. DJ Wesselak's a guy that could end up at this Georgia Clemson game that is from a similar area of Dan Lanning. But is there any other edge guys maybe that Georgia needs to look out for, or the people here on the YouTube channel might need to know about? Any guys on the edge that Georgia's pursuing?
I think it's definitely when we've talked about CJ Madden, seemingly every week. He seems like Georgia's still the leader there, obviously. I mean, we all know that. And then Anai, like you said, is kind of trending maybe a little more away from Georgia now. I think that guy still to circle is Michael Williams. You look at a guy like that, and if they're able to flip him from USC, that the whole complexion of this class changes. You go from, that's a headline guy that you would be getting at that position. So if they're able to flip him, that changes the whole complexion of the class, I think. So that's the guy still to look at. As we know, as we reported, they're still pursuing him pretty hard, talking to him every day. So I think that's the guy to really look at when we're looking at how the edge class is going to shake out. Yeah,
and I think one more guy that we need to add to that is Shamar Stewart, in terms of the just massive talent there out of Opelika, Florida. Mount Senior Pace Academy down there. He is down to a top 5. Texas A&M, Ohio State, Georgia, Miami. And then there's another school in there that I can't remember, but Miami, Texas A&M, Georgia, and Ohio State are really the 4 in there that have the most momentum. I would say Texas A&M has garnered a lot of momentum with him as of late, getting him in for the last visit there in July. It has been said, Shamar Stewart's camp has told me multiple times that Georgia is pushing extremely hard to be Shamar's last visit of his entire recruitment, bar none. Last official visit, last visit overall. And so far, Shamar's willing to grant that request to Georgia. Things are progressing well with him and Dan Lanning, things like that. And we've seen here in this class that the teams that get those last visits are really successful in bringing the guys on. So that seems to be a big deal. And Georgia would go, have a lot of momentum there. if you're able to bring in a guy like Shamar Stewart in the class and maybe pair him with a Michael Williams, I mean, that Georgia's class goes from Trent, it goes from being ranked 6th right now to in the top 2, probably no less than top 2, right?
Oh, definitely. And to me, it looks like Georgia's, with the way they're trying to recruit the jack linebacker position, they look like they're trying to get bigger at the position. I mean, just, I look back at my Malik Herron was a similar size, and, he was never recruited at that jack linebacker position. He was strictly like a 5-tech defensive end. But they're trying to get bigger at that defensive end, and just I think it is because they see a lot, or they run a lot more 4-man fronts out of the nickel package. So you see a lot more 4-man fronts, and getting that quick 260-pound edge guy coming off the edge. It's just especially a guy like Shamar. He would be a dominant force right there on that defensive end spot.
Yeah, Shamar, I think last time I talked that he's actually even gotten, like you said, bigger. I mean, the guy's up close to 270, 275, but runs on a laser time 4.55 40.
He is a lean 265, 272. I mean, he's jacked. He's got good muscle, but he's not your stocky kid. I mean, he is lean 265, 270.
No doubt. So I'm gonna put this one up here. Do our prospects go into our game Saturday night get tickets from us? Yes, I'll answer that one. Georgia's able to give tickets. Trent informed me that rule changed a couple years ago where you're able to give tickets. You're just not able to help them get up there. They got to do that on their own. So that we answered that part of the question. The other part was, do our prospects sit in a UGA section? Can they go in our dressing room after the win? I don't think that there, and first of all, Dog Bite U's calling the shot that Georgia's going to beat Clemson. So you notice he worked that into the question there. But Trent, I don't think they're allowed to have the contact with the team right there in terms of coming into the locker room or anything like that. But I would imagine those tickets would be grouped together somewhat, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think there'll be sections for the recruits and recruit families to send in or how many tickets they have. But I don't think there's any communication. I don't think communication is allowed at these things because it is still dead period. The coaches can't communicate with the prospects. So, yeah, I don't think so.
All right, and now let's go to our next question here. It is from Primetime Dog, and actually, I'm going to hide that one, put it on the scroll. Okay, Jed. So we've got a question about receivers here. It says, besides Burden, is there any other top receiver who could have legit interest in how the offense looks this year? I'm trying to think of top receivers. I know, Jed, that we've talked a lot about Andre Green Jr. I've also talked about Shaz Preston. But outside of those guys, I can't really think of any big guys that are really looking intently at Georgia's offense this year. Does anybody come to mind in terms of a receiver target? Anybody that they're, they've got Dylan Bell already committed, Cole Spears committed, Denali Morsat. I know you've seen Sam Mbake some, in terms of covering North Cobb. What's the latest you've got from Sam when you talked to him?
So I tried to grab him after that North Cobb Buford game. He got away before I could talk to him. Last update I got from him, it was between Georgia, Ole Miss, and Florida. From his perspective, I don't know if that Georgia offer is a committable one, was a committable one, in any of that kind of stuff. But as far as big receivers, I think those, you nailed it on the head. Andre Green, Shaz Preston, and Luther Burden too. And I think all of those guys could have interest in how the offense looks. Or I think it's a recruit by recruit basis. I talked to Sam Mbake once, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I need to see how the offense looks. I need to see all that kind of stuff." And then I went and talked to Omari Kelly, who has since committed to Auburn, but at the time he had Georgia in his top 4 or 8, whatever it was, and he was like, "No, it really doesn't matter much to me." So I think it depends on each kid, what each kid's looking for, and all that kind of stuff. But I think for those three at that level of prospect, they very well could want to see, especially a guy like Andre Green, who's going to be actually at the Clemson game, in person, seeing how the new look up or not.
Oh, went out there again, Jed. But yeah. Oh yeah. And I think that, sometimes that gets overblown, guys. Like Kirby Smart said in the in the press conference today. He's like, a lot of people in the media are going to make one way or the other about, oh, Georgia's the next national champion or they're out of it after on Saturday. And a lot of recruits, if Georgia goes up there and throws for 450 yards and lights up Clemson like a Christmas tree, through the air, then of course, yeah, that grabs some people's attention. But if it's the normal flow of the game and Georgia looks just productive through offense, I think it's still going to have a lot to do with the relationships with the staff, and also just a lot of these guys. You got to understand, people here are looking at through a lens of, okay, Georgia needs to get these guys. But these guys are actually living it, Trent, and they're having to go through and say, where's the best situation for me in terms of where do I fit on the depth chart? Where can I develop things like that?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much more. Relationships, fit, offense, scheme, and there's just a lot of different factors. I do think that there is numerous people waiting for Georgia to open the door in that passing game because that has been a negative recruiting tool for other teams for so long. And why are you going to Georgia just to block? It's one of those things that receivers have told me over the years that has just been like other teams have used as a negative recruiting tool. And I think that's one thing that has to change. Georgia's putting guys in the NFL. Obviously, they put what, 5 last year. On an NFL roster,
defensive positions, so they've been on the defensive side, right? A lot of those guys in terms of the guys that go in the NFL. So I think what you're saying, they probably need to consistently put NFL receivers.
Yeah, I mean, they put a few years ago, they put Ridley, they put Javon Williams, they put those guys. But yeah, I mean, you can start getting those top tier draft picks like your George Pickens, who could be a first round draft pick, and you can start opening up the offense and showcasing those players and start landing some of these big name players and turn the wide receiver into a running back room. Basically, what they've done with the running backs, start doing that with the wide receivers. But I just think that a lot of people are waiting. When's Georgia going to open up? When's Georgia going to transition to scheme like everybody else is in college football? And I think that's a lot of wait and see. And we'll know that answer, I guess, Saturday night.
Yeah, absolutely. Next question here from Old Dog 05. Do you guys think we get Hero Canoe, and who else do we bring in this class? Well, we've already talked about a bunch of the guys that are primary guys. They also said who is a must get. Name 3 players. Hero Canoe, in terms of that defensive tackle position, he'd be more that 3 technique type deal. Georgia's obviously interested. They brought him in on campus, but he's very far from a decision right now as a top 9, I believe, 9 or 10 with, programs like Alabama and Notre Dame, the Ohio State, all the who's who of college football is in that big top program. So there's a long way to go with the Hero Canoe recruitment. And then guys, in terms of a must get for Georgia, I just think the positions of the most need, they need that pure safety like Kamari Wilson. He's in my opinion a must get, simply because of the time and the effort, and he's the only one that they've recruited. I think Oscar Delp's a must get, because you can see, Georgia came in to this, fall camp looking like they have the best tight end room in the country, and you're one injury away from, suddenly become a little bit thinner. So you can't add too many players there, and then probably one of those corners to go with either Julian Humphrey or Jaheem Singletary. Is there anybody else that stands out? Probably one of those defensive tackles too, right, Trent? That would be a must get.
Yeah, and I think, looking at it, I think you need to land Michael or Shamar, one of the two. I think that's big, just with the outside line. The outside linebacker room, it has gone from stacked to thin. So I think landing one of those two guys, landing the defensive tackle and landing one of those safeties for sure are 3 priorities.
Yeah, no doubt. I think in terms of guys like Nolan Smith and Adam Anderson probably going to the pros after this year, like you said, there's going to be a lot to replace there on that side. Got some rapid fire questions here. Jed, I'll let you take the first one. Does Georgia take over or under 3.5 offensive linemen this year? What's your gut feeling? Over or under 3.5? Under. Yeah, I agree. Under. I think 3 would be the max. Is Georgia more likely to land Jaheem Singletary or Julian Humphrey Trent? You take that one.
Jaheem Singletary.
Jaheem Singletary. I would concur. Only reason I think that that's more likely is because as of now, Julian Humphrey is still committed to Florida. And like I said, before you can sign somebody else, they have to flip. So until he decommits, Jaheim Singletary has decommitted from Ohio State. So Georgia's, wide open there. And then the last one was the Georgia commit most likely to jump up the rankings. I'm going to go with, I think Dylan Bell is going to jump up the rankings quite a bit. The easy answer would be to say Cole Spear because he's entirely unranked and has no stars and anything like that. And I think he'll have a great senior year and at least get bumped up to probably a 3-star, something along those lines. But Dylan Bell, I think, has a lot of untapped potential at this point so far in his career, a lot of athleticism. Trent, you probably broke down his film, things like that. What do you see out of a Dylan Bell?
Oh, yeah, I think he's extremely underrated. I mean, I think he is a guy with his body's almost college ready. He's almost one of those receivers that you can come in and play as a freshman and throw him on the field. Just his skill set, he's just built physically for the next level, and I do think you might see him rise. I think you might see Jacob Hood rise. I think Jacob Hood, my personal opinion, I think Jacob Hood is and he's not the 25th best offensive tackle in the country, in my opinion. I think he's more, top 10, 12 offensive tackle, which would put him, closer to the top 100. But I could see him rising.
Yeah,
so those are two guys I could see rising.
Yeah, so I think Georgia's got a long way to go in terms of where the guys they have committed to him now end up. Also, there may be some guys fall. There's been some questions on some of the guys maybe at the top of their class. Do they hang on to 5 stars, things like that? So we'll see how it all plays out. Now for our last question, the guy who keeps it real around here, the realistic UGA fan, 1191 version 2.0, the biggest name out there we aren't hearing much about that could be pleasantly surprised on signing day. Jed, is there anybody that maybe we aren't talking about a whole lot that, it's not out of the realm of possibility that Georgia ends up with them come National Signing Day?
That's a good question. I mean, Bear Alexander, I feel like it's talked about a lot, but that's a guy that, he's on, or I guess it's not flip watch, it'd be D-flipping watch, but
D-flip twice removed watch with Bear Alexander there. That would no doubt committed to Georgia. For those that maybe don't keep up with everything, he was committed to Georgia, goes on an unofficial visit to Texas A&M, decommits right after. We've put in a lot of future cast for Texas A&M for Bear Alexander over here. So if he did end up back in the Georgia class, I think it'd be a little bit surprising on that end. I think a name, Jed and Trent, that you don't hear a lot about just because he's where he's located. He's located in the state of Louisiana, is Shaz Preston. And I'm not here saying that, Shaz Preston's going to end up at Georgia. I'm not calling Georgia that a lean or a favorite to Georgia. But what I am saying is that Shaz Preston is 100% listening to the University of Georgia. He was in Kirby Smart's office when Kirby Smart, and this came directly from Shaz and his father, Kirby Smart, told him that they would welcome his commitment at any time. He's one of the guys that the term was put over the line. Kirby Smart said there's 10 or 12 receivers each year that they look at that are over the line, guys that they will take. And Shaz Preston is one of those. An official visit is in the works to the University of Georgia this fall. If that comes to fruition and they're able to get him there, obviously you have to fight off LSU with him being a Louisiana guy, and then Alabama. Trent, I know that it's difficult pulling those guys out of the state of Louisiana. But when you have a guy like a Shaz Preston, who is a bona fide number one on his team in high school, has the skill set he does in special teams, things like that, Georgia, with their ties with Cortez Hankton from the New Orleans area, they're going to put on the full court press to try to either bring him or Luther Burden or Andre Green Jr. as part of this class. Yeah,
no doubt. I think if Georgia can land one of those 3 guys, they'll feel good about this wide receiver class. It is hard. I watched the John Emery recruitment very closely, and a lot of other recruitments. They did go in and land Cedric Van Pran. They had made some headwaves, landing some Louisiana guys. But the Dante Jackson a couple of years, the list goes on of guys who they've been in the top 2 for all the way to the end of the day to LSU to grab them. So it's going to be a tough pull to land Shaz, but Georgia's definitely going to pursue there, just as they're going to pursue Luther Burden and Andre Green.
Absolutely. And guys, that is our show here for tonight. We got to answer a bunch of questions, covered a lot of ground. Make sure you've subscribed. Go ahead and hit the like button. Before you exit off here, hit the like button for us. That does a lot. Leave a review on the YouTube page. Go ahead and hit the notification bell. You got stuff like Jim Donnan and Dane Young interviewed Kirk Herbstreit with it being game week. There's lots of stuff coming up in the coverage here on the UGA Sports YouTube channel. And then, of course, make sure to share it and put it all out there. Listen to the podcast version over on the Vault. And guys, it was fun. And we'll watch the game on Saturday, have our reactions of who was there up in Charlotte. And then we'll catch everybody next week, Monday night, 8:15 p.m. here on the UGA Sports YouTube channel for another edition of Rumors versus Facts.